Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the RSB Elements webinar called Chain of Custody Systems, Choosing the Best Solution. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items for everyone. To let you know, the webinar will be recorded and a PDF of the handouts will be available after the webinar. If you'd like them, you can email us. We'll have our contact information at the end of the PowerPoint slides, and you'll have Melanie's contact information there. But you can also email us at info@rsb.org with your requests for the slides or the recording. We have muted everybody so we can hear the presenters clearly. However, we encourage your written questions, and we'll host a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. But no need to hold your questions until the very end. You can simply type in your question in the GoToWebinar questions box located on the right hand of your screen. So you should all see that to the right. It's a little plus sign that says questions. If you click on that, you can type in your question, which we will then see during the webinar. I'll collect them throughout the webinar, and then we can talk about them at the Q&A portion at the end. Our speakers will present information for approximately 45 minutes, and we'll have about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So let's start with some information about our speakers today. We'll first hear from Dr. Melanie Williams. She's the Regional Director for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Melanie leads RSB certification activities in those regions and assists biomaterials producers and refiners with their applications for RSB certification. She also advises RSB participating operators on European biofuel regulation and how it can affect their certification. She's also a contact point for the European Commission. We'll then hear from David Keenan, who's Element Software's Product Strategy and Marketing Director. He's based in the UK and has been working in the tech sector for the past 17 years for a number of multinational and startup IT companies in France, UK, USA, and Ireland. Following his MBA, he joined Element Software and is now responsible for driving all product strategy and marketing activities. He spent much of his time in Central and West Africa over the last 5 years running projects and defining the necessary functionality in the Element software for the timber traceability. And now he's focused on the biofuel sector. He's going to go through a little bit of a demo of the Element software program and utilizing it for the chain of custody. So we're going to start with Melanie now. Melanie, I am giving you control for the slides, and you can go over what we're going to talk about today.
Thank you, Helena, and hello, everybody. This slide shows what we're going to talk about today in the webinar. First of all, I'm going to give an introduction to the subject, and then I'll have just one slide on an overview of the RSB sustainability scheme. I'm then going to focus on the main topic today, which is the chain of custody standard and the mass balance accounting system, which is one option within the chain of custody standard. We're then going to talk about the challenges that an auditor faces when doing an audit of a supply chain for the chain of custody, and what types of software people are now using to help with this type of issue, and also to give benefits for compliance and business benefits. So then we're coming on to focusing in on what we're actually recommending, and this is where we come to the part about the Element software. And I'll hand over to David, who will tell you how it works and give you a short demonstration, and then summarize the benefits that we believe this will bring. If you could, thank you, Helena. I couldn't click onto the next slide. Thank you. So here's the introduction. We're talking about commodity feedstocks, mainly biomass and biofuel, and traceability is a very important topic which is being talked about a lot at the moment, and people are taking action. This is because the system which tracks a sustainably produced material or a certified material from the source through all of the different processing or trading stages needs to be robust. This is because the consumer, the ultimate purchaser, needs to know that if they're looking to purchase a certified or sustainable material, that that is indeed what they're going to be getting. And in the world of biofuels, sustainability attributes, particularly greenhouse gas savings, need to be passed down the supply chain with individual consignments. So that's extra information that has to be passed down as well. So now we're going to present some different approaches to this and focus in on a software solution that we're recommending to members. So first of all, we have a slide about the RSB standard and its certification system. RSB was started in 2007 at EPFL in Switzerland. And it was set up as a global multi-stakeholder standard with certification options for the sustainability of all types of biomass, feedstocks, be they crops or waste materials, the different processing options through to biofuels and later biomaterials. The standards were developed with input from over 120 members in more than 35 countries, and there was input from private sector companies in the biofuel supply chain, NGOs, non-government, and also funding bodies. RSB became one of the first EU-approved voluntary sustainability schemes, so RSB certified operators show that they are in compliance with the Renewable Energy Directive, which allows access to incentives and tax breaks for biofuels in Europe. It covers the entire supply chain, and the 12 principles and criteria are really wide-ranging. So I'm not going to go into details, but they cover human and labour rights, protection of biodiversity and the environment, greenhouse gas savings, and food security in areas of the world where that is important. And as I say, I really want to stress it applies to all feedstocks and supply chains. This slide summarises an independent analysis that was done of all EU-approved sustainability schemes. In fact, 2 analyses separately by WWF and IUCN. The pie chart here shows some detail from one of the reports, but both of them found RSB to be the top performer of all of the EU-approved voluntary sustainability schemes. So of the sustainability criteria that WWF thought should be in a scheme, RSB has nearly 80% of those fully covered, and then a further 16% partially covered. So if you want any more detail on that assessment of RSB, then you can go to the link at the bottom of the slide.
And I think we clicked on the link by accident. That's where it was.
Okay, sorry. I've been over-enthusiastic. Right, focusing on the chain of custody standard. So a sustainability scheme has at its heart a production standard which covers the production of the raw material and describes best operational practice. After that, the chain of custody standard describes how this material, which conforms to the production standard, is passed down the supply chain to the consumer. We're focusing today on commodities, which are produced in large quantities, have an often complicated supply chain involving trading, storage, processing, then perhaps further processing to the final product. And under those circumstances, it's not economic to have a separate logistics for certified products. So you can't have segregation with separate storage and separate transport. So it's widely accepted that under those circumstances, certified sustainable material is mixed with conventional or other material in the logistics system. But the commodity is tracked, the amount of certified material is tracked using a mass balance chain of custody model. So this is a bit of detail on the mass balance accounting system, because this is where we often need the software to help us keep track. So a brief overview is that if you're mixing both sustainable and conventional material, you must demonstrate that at the end of a fixed accounting period, the amount of material, sustainable material you have in stock or sold must be equal to the amount that you put in or purchased. The certificate or the proof of sustainability stays with the individual consignment, and every organisation in the supply chain that takes legal and physical ownership of the product must operate a mass balanced accounting system. In RSB, the period over which you must carry out this mass balance is 3 months a quarter. So at the end of every quarter, you must be in balance. The amount that you have inputting into the system equals the amount that's coming out. Organisations under certain circumstances can go short in sustainable material over the accounting period, but at the end must be in balance. And if there's a processing step at your facility which causes a change of mass, then conversion factors, which are transparently calculated and also audited, must be applied within the mass balance system for it to work. So an auditor, when they're carrying out an audit, faces a number of challenges when looking at the supply chain and the chain of custody. In the world of biofuels, where operators can have more than one certification, they might have more than one chain of custody system for each certification that they hold. But the auditor must look at the entire mass balance, all of the schemes, including suppliers and customers, to ensure that it's been operated correctly. So that's already quite a bit of work. There's also been some concern that although the auditors can do a good job at one facility, they sometimes have difficulty detecting discrepancies in volumes of certified material which are traded between certified organisations. In certain schemes, particularly for waste materials in biofuels, traceability of the material right back to the origin needs to be visible to the auditor. In other types of schemes where byproduct or scrap material re-enters the main supply chain further up, then that needs to be accounted for as well. So this is quite a complex picture. Up until now, people have adapted their own office systems, office software systems to perhaps cope with generating a mass balance accounting system, or they've used Excel spreadsheets offline to cope with inputs and outputs. But now software providers are coming up with bespoke solutions, and a number of them are being adopted. I've grouped a few different ones together because they're very similar, and I've called it an online inventory system. This is being adopted by RSPO, FSC, and a new scheme designed to actually check all waste materials in Europe called the Register of Biofuels Origination. These inventory systems trace transactions between operators. They're managed by the sustainability scheme themselves and hosted by the scheme, and an operator will generate an amount of certified material which is agreed with the auditor, and that is all entered into the online inventory system under their account. When they register a sale to another certified operator who is an account holder, they log a sale, and buyers confirm a purchase and then perhaps sell it to another account holder further down the supply chain. The cost of the system is covered by a flat fee to the sustainability scheme or a per transaction fee. So there is a number of benefits and drawbacks to this type of system. If it's compulsory, if all certificate holders have to be registered and register their sales and purchases on it, it offers a high level of assurance if it's regularly audited. But operators have had issues because they have to input details of their customers and suppliers onto a database that is not under their control, and they're worried about data security. Also, it may not interface with all different types of software, and operators, although they want to upload in the quickest way possible, they might have to input data manually. And although very useful, in the end it is a compliance tool which doesn't really offer many business or operational benefits to the users. After some careful study, we have chosen a slightly different option which has the possibility of being under the control of individual operators. It can be hosted centrally by the provider, as you'll see, but also it can be hosted by the operator on their own servers. It offers very good flexibility and excellent functionality over multi-site operations. It's called Elements and is provided by Elements Software Limited. And it has a good track record in the forestry and mineral sector. And most importantly, as well as being a compliance tool and helping auditors, it also offers business and operational benefits, as you'll see. So I'm going to hand over to David now, who's going to tell you more about it, and you will understand then how it works. Over to you, David, then.
Great. Thank you very much, Melanie. Thank you very much for that overview. Elements Software is a traceability development software company, and for the last 10 years we've been developing traceability solutions for a number of sectors. Primarily the timber sector is where we originated, but more recently in biofuel sector, in the agricultural commodity sector, and in mining. What we've learned over the years of developing traceability systems, and some of the key learnings that we've shared with RSB, and probably the reason why our partnership has grown, is to do with the awareness of the sensitivity of supply chain data. The data about your supply chain is obviously extremely private, and we acknowledge the fact that hosting that data in a third party is sometimes not exactly the most appropriate method. So the way our approach and the way in which our software is set up is that we host our software in the cloud in a hosting provider called Amazon Web Services, one of the world's leading hosting providers and most secure. But also we offer the option of having the software hosted in your own IT infrastructure, giving you complete and utter control over the data that is inputted. One of the other things we've learned about developing traceability systems is that when organizations are required to collect data for regulatory reasons, an online inventory system is necessary, but ultimately it's the value-added tools that you need in order to do what you do today, tomorrow, much easier. So that's what this first slide aims at, just tries to articulate. So a very simple supply chain. Element sits underneath all of the locations in conjunction with the RSB standard. And what we're able to offer is, first of all, the digital passport. And the digital passport is effectively a chain of custody record that details every control point along the supply chain all the way back to the point of origin, which will ultimately speed up the time it takes for an auditor to walk all the way back through the chain of custody. We also offer online mass balance calculations for each location, so that allows every mass balance calculation to be viewed through one simple interface. And then finally, the real-time stock reports that allow you to see what sustainability you have at each location. And that allows you to ensure that your mass balance calculations are always in credit. So hopefully through the demo I'm going to give you, Eleanor, have I got the slides? Can I?
Yep. Are you ready to do the demo?
No, yeah, up to the next slide. No, not
oh,
sorry.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I was just trying to move on to the next slide.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. So in order to show you some of these value-adding tools that we offer in the software, I'm using a supply chain to illustrate how we move biofuel through the supply chain and how the system will work. So you'll see these sites in the software. Ultimately, what we're doing is an RSB member is selling 9,000 kilograms of RSB certified used cooking oil methyl ester to BP1, biofuel producer 1, BP1. So that parcel of fuel is coming from Hessel, which is a distribution location, which stores the Ucomi, which is come from the processing facility called Appam. The processing facility is where the used cooking oil is converted into used cooking oil methyl ester. The Appam location is fed by a depot called Leer, and then Leer is fed by a number of points of arising or points of origin along the supply chain where the used cooking oil is collected. So that's the overview of the supply chain. What I'll do is I'll walk through the software and you'll see how an auditor is able to verify that the 9,000 kilograms of RSB certified meets the RSB standard. So if you could let me take over and go through the software, Eleanor, thank you very much. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual functionality in the system and use the case study of the 9,000 kilograms of used cooking oil methyl ester being sold to BP1 as an example. So I'm going to log into the application using my username and password. You can distribute individual username and passwords to each site so that each site is responsible for collecting the sustainability data, or you can just have one username and password at a central location that is consolidating all of that data. Just depends on each organization and the way in which they're set up. So here we are, we're logged into the system. The screen is split into two parts. On the left hand side we have a navigation bar which allows you to look at each module within the system, and when I click on each module I can see that the functionality is then tailored in the landing page, and the functionality is accessed through tiles, these square boxes. We've designed the system in this way so that it's easy to use on a tablet, so the touchscreen facility is available. Also it's simple and easy to use using a PC, a Mac or a smartphone. So the first thing I'm going to do when I log into the system as a new user is to set up the sites to reflect the physical supply chain that my feedstocks and biofuel is passing through. So if I go to administration and I click on geography, I'm able to pull up a list of all of the sites that are in the system. So these are all the locations that I have registered in Elements. So for this demo I want to have a look at the sites that we've created for our BP1 and the 9,000 kilograms of Ucomi. So here we can see the 3 used cooking oil collection points. We've got the first gathering point at Leer, volume allocation site at Appam, where the biofuel is processed, and then the distribution depot at Hessel. If I want to have a look at one of these sites, I can drill in through clicking on the name, and I can see the useful information that builds up a profile about that site.
And this is what an auditor will want to be looking at in order to make sure that all of the relevant documentation is available to justify that it is RSB certified. So I'm able to upload documentation, whether it's an RSB certificate or health and safety, whatever it might be. But this is the ability to create a profile for that particular site. It's probably easiest to look at sites through the map. So I'm able to pull up all of my sites in a map. For example, I can take a look at different site types. So why don't we have a look at the used cooking oil collection points. And I can see the 3 sites where we're going to be collecting our used cooking oil. So if I click on that site, I can see over here that this is RSB Weena, and there's a little note to the driver to say that only collect on Wednesdays after 3 p.m. If I click on View Site, I can also go back into that profile. So once all of the sites have been created in the system, I need to allocate conversion factors for the mass balance calculation at each site. So again, I'll go into administration, and if I go into conversion factors, I will see here each conversion factor that I, as a biofuel company, has specified. So I know what efficiency rate my locations are operating at. And so RSB Appen is where the processing facility is for UCO to UCOME, and they have a conversion factor of 1 to 0.9. So in order to make 9 kilograms of UCOME, I need 10 kilograms of used cooking oil. At Lear and Hessel, these are 2 storage locations. So I've got UCO to UCO, which is a conversion factor of 1, and I've got RSB Hessel, I've got UCOME to UCOME, which again is a storage location, conversion factor of 1. And the last bit of configuration I need to do is I need to tell Elements which certification schemes I recognize and which certification schemes I'm using in order to verify the sustainability of my biofuels and feedstocks. So if I click into certification schemes, I can input in here the different certification schemes that I am recognizing. RSB is obviously in there. Okay, so let's get back to our case study of the 9,000 kilograms of UCOME that was sold to BP1. What will BP1 receive traditionally today? They'll receive a proof of sustainability certificate very similar to the one on your screens at the moment, detailing the participating operator and then the recipient of that biofuel. However, when Elements is used in order to publish the proof of sustainability certificates, you'll notice that a digital passport number will now be included in the header. This digital passport number will provide the auditor with the necessary product ID to verify the chain of custody back to a point of origin, and also allow him or her to view the mass balance calculations that this particular consignment have travelled through to ensure that they are in credit during the accounting period. So if I copy that digital passport number and then go back into Elements and go to the traceability module and open up the digital passport and use that ID, I can see that the first screen tells me exactly where that consignment is today. So I can see that it's owned by BP1, it's based at plant 2, there's 9,000 kilograms, and it is German origin, 100% German origin, and it's certified under RSB. So that's where we are today. So what the auditor wants to do is walk back up through the supply chain. And so in order to do that, he or she must click on History. So by clicking on the History tab, I can start walking through the supply chain. So here I can see that on the 23rd of March, my consignment was sent from Hessel to plant 2. It was sent by sea. It used CRD containers as a transporter. And at Hessel, we can see that in order to output 9,000 kilograms in the system, we need to associate that 9,000 kilograms to an input of 9,000, and the system will do that automatically. So here we can see that it's associated 9,000 kilograms required to this product ID. So if I click on View Products, I can see that it's associated to this product ID, and so in order to walk back through the supply chain, I click on the link, and here I can see that this particular consignment was sent from Appen on the 23rd of March. It was sent by road by TTF transporters to Hessel, and we can see that the system has allocated that 9,000 kilograms to this 9,000 kilograms of product which exited from Appen. Appen, don't forget, is the processing unit. So the system has to allocate an input for that 9,000 kilograms at Appen. It uses the mass balance calculation and the conversion factor. And so we can see that in order to create an output of 9,000 kilograms of Ucomi, we need 10,000 kilograms of Uco. So that 10,000 kilograms, we need to walk back and see where that came from. So the system has allocated 2 product IDs to make up that 10,000 kilograms. One product ID which consists of 738 kilograms and another 9,261. So we could go back and have a look at both, but just for time, just for the benefit of time, let me have a look at the larger consignment ID. So here we can see that this 9,261 kilograms, which was part of an original consignment of 10,000 kilograms. And that 10,000 kilograms was sent from Leer 2 to Appen using the same transporters by road, TTF transporters. And so in Leer is a storage location. So in order to provide Appen with 10,000 kilograms from Leer needs to associate that 10,000 kilograms to an input that they have received. And here we can see that the system has allocated 10,000 to this product ID. So if I look at products, I can see that this product ID was associated to that 10,000. And so I can see that the product has been received at Leer 2 and it was sent from IHR Hove. So as you can see, mass balance calculations are volume allocating verified quantities, volumes of biofuel or feedstock as you walk back up through the supply chain. And so consequently the auditor is able to verify the chain of custody for that particular order and is happy that all of the sustainability data is in place and it meets the RSB certification. So the next thing he needs to do, or she, is to have a look at the mass balance calculation. So if I click into my mass balance report, I can go and first of all have a look at Hessel. So this is the location that I sent, the final destination, final location that RSB members sent the used cooking oil methyl ester to BP1. So if I use a 3-month accounting period, I'm able to see what has arrived and what has exited from Hessel. So during this period of time. So I can see that in Hessel we've only got Ucomi. We've only got the moment RSB certified Ucomi. And we can see that 230 odd thousand kilograms has arrived and only 9,000 is left. So looking at our in and out calculation, we can see that we're very much in credit. So walking back to the next location, let's have a look at Appen. So if we have a look at Appen's mass balance calculation for the same period, we can see that we have received 2 types of Uco. We've received 275,000 kilograms of RSB certified and 4,500 of unknown. So we cannot use 4,500 of this Uco for any consignments which are associated to an RSB requirement. So we can see that we've received in total Uco, both RSB and uncertified, 280,000 kilograms. And then we can see what's exited, so what Ucomi has exited. We've only exited RSB certified Ucomi, and that was a total of 247,000. So again, we can verify from our in and out totals that the Appen location is positive. And finally, we can have a look at our Leer location, our first gathering point, during the same time period. So Leer 2 we were looking at. So here we can see that RSB certified Uco has been arriving at the first gathering point here from the used cooking oil collection points. And again, looking at the in and out calculation, we can tell that we're in credit and everything's fine. So that will provide the auditor with the necessary information required in order to verify that that 9,000 kilograms of used cooking oil methyl ester meets RSB standards. So I'm just going to finish off with just to show you one small piece of functionality that I know has been a headache for many of the people I've spoken to, especially those people using spreadsheets in order to manage the mass balance calculations at each location. And that's when a physical stock correction is required. That's when a physical dip is taken in one of the tanks, and that needs to be aligned with the data, sustainability data, which is being tracked. And so using Elements, we were able to add a stock correction at any site, and that stock correction will then have a note attached to it which will provide the auditor with the necessary information to explain why the stock correction has taken place, and then that will have a knock-on effect up through the mass balance calculations in the system. And so there won't be need to go into each calculation and make manual edits. The system will just automatically update the mass balance calculations with the quantity of correction that has been inputted. So that's around about it. It's a sort of a fairly high-level overview of the software. I'd be delighted to talk to anybody in more detail one-on-one if you'd like to contact me. I think my contact details are on the final slide. But at that point, I think I'll hand over back to Helena, and then we can finish the final slide and look forward to hear any questions that you may have. Many thanks.
David, before we go to Melanie, we have another question that I thought would be good to ask now, since, again, it's related to the Elements software program and the demo you just showed us. We have someone who asked that they plan to use Elements for biochar and fertilizer chain of custody tracking for the International Biochar Initiative Standards and State Department Food and Agricultural Licensing. And their question is there any reason not to do so, or any specific modules or changes needed to the Elements program?
Hi, thanks very much for that question. So I think the key thing about Elements is that we have developed the functionality as a result of our experience in multiple sectors. And what we have concluded is that there is generic traceability functionality which is applicable to any asset in any supply chain, in any sector. In our biofuels traceability platform, we have the ability to create different product types. And that allows us to track those product types through the supply chain using the mass balance, using the digital passport, and using the volume allocation functionality that is used to track all assets. And so in the simple answer to your question, it's a case of simply creating a new product type, and then there will be some characteristics associated to that product type which may or may not be adjusted. The way in which the system's been developed is to be configurable for any product type. So the 90% response to your question is no problem whatsoever. There may be a few characteristics that are associated to fertilizers that we would need to update, but it would be a fairly simple job.
Okay, thank you. They also mentioned that their plant is going to intake a lot of different feedstock types and feedstock streams, including used vegetable and animal oils for biodiesel, as well as clean, dry biomass for biochar production. So I don't know if that makes a difference, that it's going to intake a lot of different feedstock types. Would that make any change?
No, am I still sharing my screen, Helena?
No, you're not. Do you want me to share it?
No, don't worry. I wasn't sure if I was still, because I was beginning to change the screen. It's okay. I can answer that. The system can manage multiple feedstocks and multiple certification schemes, and can quite easily manage and have new feedstocks associated. So that's not a problem. We have customers that are collecting used cooking oil, tallow, sugar cane, converting that into sugar and ethanol. So that's exactly the philosophy that the system has been based upon, to reflect the reality of biofuel producers who are collecting multiple feedstocks and then converting that feedstock into a product as it goes down through the supply chain.
All right, great, thank you. So Melanie, did you want to go ahead and finish
Yeah,
up?
thanks. Yeah, so our last slide summarizes essentially the benefits that we see for operators. So starting with the ease with which feedstock can be attributed and traced back to its point of origin. The next thing is the complete encapsulation of its history via the digital passport, which can be kept confidential, but the number can be shown to the auditor, who can then have access to the system during the audit. So we believe it does speed up the audit and reduces time under normal operations to track consignments through the supply chain. It's well suited to UCO and waste materials, but a number of other materials as well. And although it's good for compliance, it also offers operational and business advantages. So we'd be very happy to answer further questions or do contact us if you have any other questions that come later. I think there's one slide left with some contact details, and also they're on the front slide as well.
Okay, and we have a couple questions that have come in, so let me start going through some of them. One of them is about the Elements program, the software. Can you clarify how Element solves the concerns of system users in terms of confidentiality? And they make a comment of how lots of commodity companies are afraid of revealing their suppliers to external parties, and the idea that the whole chain of custody is displayed in the cloud. And they mentioned that they know transparency is required, but they wanted to find out about how the data is hosted. Is it Amazon or a company-owned IT? Concerns about the confidentiality of the data. You want to address that, David?
Yeah, that's fine. That's a brilliant question, and it's exactly the reason why Melanie and I started the conversation that we did 18 months ago. The confidentiality of supply chain data is enormous for businesses, and I have experienced that probably the hard way in my previous life in the timber sector. Sharing customer and supplier data is the heart of every business, and so making sure that that data is protected is absolute paramount. So the way in which this software, first of all, has been developed, we have tried to replicate the exact same view that exists in reality, which is one up and one down. And so what will happen is that if I am, for example, in my demo, I used BP1, who has just received 9,000 kilograms of biofuel. If I was able to, if I logged on as BP1 into the system, I would be able to see that my biofuel had come from the Hessel distribution location, and I would be able to see that on what transport it arrived on and how much on what date. And I would not be able to see any further than that because of the security of the data. I'd then be able to see, obviously, who I'd sold that on to. So if BP1 sold it on to somebody, I'd be able to see where it went. And so effectively what we're creating is a one-up, one-down view of the supply chain data. So that's the first bit. Obviously, if a biofuel producer or a user is more vertically integrated across multiple sites, then that user will be able to see throughout their own infrastructure, but they'll only be able to see where the product has come from, and not any further down their customer supply chain. So that's the way in which the data is viewed from a user perspective. In terms of hosting, if anybody wants to contact me and for more information about the Amazon Web Services platform, please do so. Amazon Web Services hosts some of the world's largest organizations, financial and many banking organizations use Amazon Web Services, and it's a very secure hosting environment that allows a number of different options within that secured environment. And so one option is a dedicated server, another option is a shared server. So this within the Amazon Web Services infrastructure gives you different levels of security and protection. Obviously, that still might not be satisfactory to some organizations, and if that's the case, then we're able to set up the application within your own IT infrastructure, and so you'll be able to host the application on your own servers, which are in your own data centers, which would allow you to simply view that data yourself, which you would then be able to give access to an auditor, to your auditor, who would be visiting you physically, traditionally, but would be able to access your data online. So hopefully that gives you a detailed enough answer over confidentiality, because from our perspective, we believe it's very, very important, and we respect the sensitivity that you have.
Can I just add there that an auditor would normally sign a confidentiality agreement with the company's auditing, so there would be no, that comes within the way that a normal audit is conducted with or without software. So that's taken care of under those circumstances.
All right, great. We have 2 more questions that came in. One of them, Melanie, you can answer this, I think. Does RSB plan to make use of this software mandatory?
Not at the moment. We certainly hope that its use will become widespread, and people will be able to use it in trading between different RSB certified operators, but it won't be mandatory at the moment.
Okay. We also have another question about who owns the Elements software subscription. In other words, is it typically the buyer of the consumer product, the seller of the RSB certified product, or RSB? And who then reaches out to parties along the supply chain to request or mandate the use of the system? Is that David?
I think it's a bit of a joint question, Melanie. In terms of the subscription, the RSB member who signs up to use the Elements platform will subscribe to the application and will have the ability to issue a digital passport for each consignment that they trade with one of their customers. That customer will either be a user of the Elements system or not, and as Melanie said, it's not obligatory. If the customer is not a user of Elements, then it will be exactly the same process as today. They will receive their proof of sustainability certificate, the physical version. If they are a member, if they have subscribed to Elements, then obviously they will be able to input the digital passport number, which is on the proof of sustainability certificate, in order to view the information and to start managing their own sustainability data, so it's easier for that data to be passed on between RSB members. So I think that's the first part of the question with regards to subscription. The second part of the question was, Helena, what's
Sure. The second part was about who then reaches out to parties along the supply chain to request or mandate the use of the system.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the use of the system isn't mandatory. The system can stand. The aim of the system is to allow and help organizations to manage their sustainability data more efficiently and to give them the value-added tools that they don't have today, which will make doing their jobs tomorrow more easy. I think, how will this happen? It's, how will people be communicated? RSB is communicating about the software in conjunction with Elements, and that's how the news will spread.
Yeah, I think that's a very good answer. We think it offers a lot of advantages, and so it will spread because people want to use it and because it gives them some operational functionality that they don't have, or it will speed up their audit, which they find most useful. So there'll be different reasons for different companies.
All right, and we have another question that came in about agriculture purchasers are demanding full certification per lot of biochar fertilizer. It appears Elements could handle this level of reporting as well, correct?
I would, the standard answer to software is yes, and the reporting is basically, is based on as long as we collect the data, the right data that's in the database, then the reporting facility is there for us to create reports that will allow you to meet the regulations that you're looking to comply with.
Okay. All right, kind of last chance if anyone else has any questions, but we're coming up on our 1 hour point. So if anyone has any other questions, you guys can feel free to contact David or Melanie. You see their emails here, or just reply to any of the webinar emails you've got, and then we will be happy to get you in touch with them. So we thank our speakers. Thank you all for joining us as well. If you have
Melanie,
suggestions, go ahead.
Helena, just one thing. Could I just add? Sorry, just to sort of break up the sort of thank yous and etc. But with regards to Elements, I'd be delighted to talk to anybody that would like to have a look at the software and set the software up and with a couple of your sites on a free 1 month trial basis, just to give you a flavour so that you're able to take a look at the functionality. And I'd be happy to work with anybody and to give you a better understanding one-on-one and how the system works. So I just wanted to get that out there just before we said goodbye, and thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful. That's great news for all of the participants. That's great. Thank you, David. Okay. Well, it looks like we haven't had any questions come in the last minute. So thank you again, everyone. And if you have suggestions for future topics, RSB is always looking for ideas on new webinar topics that you'd like to hear about. So we look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.